Welcome to The Exhale. I'm Dr. Maureen Magauran. After 20 years in holistic psychiatry, I now guide ambitious women through deeper work around leadership, visibility, self-trust, and embodied power. This is a space for women ready to lead from a more grounded, fully expressed place. Let's begin. Hi, and welcome. Today, I'm going to be talking about my journey through psychiatry and leaving psychiatry after 20 years. And I appreciate you here. Just wanting to share some of my journey and some of the wisdom that I've learned along the way. First of all, I grew up in a large family. I have 11 brothers and sisters. My father came over from Ireland after studying medicine, met my mom, and together they decided to have a large family. People always ask me, what's it like to have 11 brothers and sisters? And I can honestly say that, well, that's all I know. It's like, this is what you grow up and this is what you know. There's always people around. There's always people to engage. And that was my experience. If anything, at the time, I was like, I want more space for myself. It was something that I wanted, but I also appreciate now, with a lot of people who don't have siblings or have smaller families, that it is this really special thing. My father was a doctor, and he had his practice outside of our home. It was actually connected to our home. It was another building that was connected to our home. And he was a family medicine practitioner. And I loved that model of medicine. It was so beautiful. He basically worked with everyone in the family throughout their lifespan. It would be like what I guess you would think of as like a primary care doctor, but these days it's almost like primary care doesn't exist so much in that, if you have something acute, you have to go to urgent care or the emergency room. And, you don't really know your doctors in the way that my father had this relationship with his patients. It was a really beautiful thing to witness. And even his office support and staff and nurses, it was like they were part of our home. They were connected to the family. They were connected through the door. We were often go in there to ask my dad a question. And, you just felt like there was a real community and family sense to the whole thing. And I love that. I just thought this is such a beautiful part of medicine. When you know someone that well and you know their family, you just see more, you can pick up on more, you understand what's going on versus, going into an urgent care and seeing someone for 10 minutes. And it's a really disjointed experience. Medicine today has really changed a lot. Unfortunately, I don't think for the better, certainly in terms of the primary care and the health model. But my father always encouraged me to go into medicine. In fact, he encouraged all of my siblings to go, and quite a lot of us are doctors. There are 8 doctors of 12 kids, which says a lot. It was, we were surrounded by it. We were immersed in it, and we really loved it. It was a great experience and model. And so when I went to medical school, I was following along in those footsteps. I actually went to medical school in Ireland. My father is from Ireland. I have dual citizenship. So I was able to apply and attend, and it was a really incredible experience. One of the best experiences of my life, actually. It was a place to be in another country, to kind of start over, to drop your identity and be yourself. And because my father's from Ireland, my mother's family is also Irish. I look Irish, and it was really easy to pick up the brogue. And, I felt like I belonged there. It was really, again, a beautiful experience. And when I was studying medicine, as you go through medical school, you pick an area of specialty, and I really wasn't sure what I was going to go into. I really was interested in cardiology, but I was drawn to psychiatry because I liked the idea of helping people in their lives, helping them change how they feel. And I often thought, you can change how you feel by changing how you think. When I went to Ireland, I was dating my husband now for a long time, and we were apart. So it was a big transition, and I decided to do some counseling. And I found it really cool. I was like, wow, I really can change how I feel by changing how I think. And that was a big part of my desire to go into psychiatry. I didn't fully understand that psychiatry is primarily medication-based. There are some psychiatrists who do therapy, but it's more focused on medication. So when I got back to the US and I was working in Boston and I was doing my psychiatry training, I worked at the VA, and I was really struck by the emphasis on medications. And I knew that wasn't something that I wanted to focus on. I knew medications could be helpful, but I knew it wasn't the answer. That we are whole people and that there's a lot more that goes into it. So I decided that I was going to open my own private practice, which I did, and I was seeing people for psychotherapy and medication management. And over time, I started to have this weird sensation where I jokingly said, I feel like a Pez dispenser. Because the model was that people would come to me, open your mouth, take the medications, go on your way, see you in 3 to 6 months. And that just did not agree with me. I didn't resonate with that at all. It's not that the medications aren't helpful. It's just like, again, the whole context of why you feel the way you do and what's happening is getting missed, or it's getting, attributed or treated or not treated by someone else. So I focused more on the psychotherapy aspect of it, and I really enjoyed that work. But I did find over time people would say to me, I've already talked about this and it doesn't feel like it's getting better. And I agreed. I agreed with them. I thought, there's something missing. It can't just be all this talking and then something shifting. Something has to change. And during that time, I got pregnant with my first child, and I decided to take some time off and be at home with him. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed my time with him, that special opportunity. And at the same time, I started studying meditation, and I realized how much meditation helped me feel more still, more silent inside. It just kind of relieved any sense of anxiety or worry I was having. And in the particular school that I was studying with, and I still continue to study with, it's called the Claire Vision School. There are energetic practices that they use, and there is a form of energetic therapy called IST, or the Inner Space Techniques of Meditation, and I am certified that, and I use that as one of my modalities in my work. So as part of my meditation training, I experienced the IST process as a client, and I was really blown away by it. I could not believe how helpful it was, and I knew that this was the missing link in my psychiatry practice. At the time when I was taking off time from work with my kids, I had a second child, and I wasn't even sure I was going to go back to psychiatry. I felt like I had really burnt out on the model of it. So I decided to come back and to bring what I called holistic psychiatry, and I integrated the meditation and the energy work. And what I found was the women did so well. They responded so well to it. They started to go off of their medications or no longer need their medications. Sometimes they didn't even tell me they were. I do recommend you talking to a clinician when you're getting off of medications. But the point being that they felt they no longer needed the medication. They were in a different place. They felt more grounded and calm. They were ready to move on into the next phase of their life. And it was really exciting. It was a powerful thing. Over time, I started to feel confined within the psychiatry model because I wanted to bring different things. I started studying somatic work, sexuality work, eating. There's so much complexity to being a human and to being a woman in today's world. And I wanted to have a more well-rounded approach to that. And I was starting to feel that there was an expectation that it would be primarily medication-based. And so I started to move away from it and explore the world of coaching. I found that in coaching, it wasn't limited so much by insurance or sessions or expectations, that we could expand. We could move beyond a problem and into desires, into what you actually wanted in your life, what was there. There was still an element of clearing away patterns, imprints, energetic patterns. You could call them problems, but they were things that maybe were keeping you stuck. But it wasn't to the level of a psychiatric diagnosis or a really limiting problem. It was more about expansion, more about connecting more with who you really are, stepping into your fullness, that kind of idea. And so as I started to explore coaching, I have expanded into moon circles on the beach, which I love doing, holding in-person retreats, and now doing this podcast. So it's been a really fun and exciting journey, and very different from one of psychiatry. And today, my work is helping ambitious women clear these deep energetic imprints so that they can increase their capacity, they can hold more, they can just essentially feel better within themselves. And there is so much that's already here that exists within us that's profound. And sometimes we forget to tap into it, or we have things that are in the way of connecting with it. And my whole goal in this is to uplift women and to allow women to uplift each other and the world, because together we are stronger. So I'm hoping that you found this episode interesting, and I will be sharing more about this journey. I still have all of the insights and the knowledge of medicine, the way the body works, psychiatry, all this understanding, but I'm also watching it all evolve, and I'm excited for that, for a new paradigm in psychiatry, mental health, where things like autoimmunity are being included in the discussion, inflammation, things happening in your body. It's a real upgrade at the time for psychiatry and mental health, and I've kind of always felt it was there and that it's needed, and I do feel like it's finally starting to evolve. But the discussion that I want to bring with you and for you is the sense of what's possible for you. If you could move beyond the things that feel like they're in the way, slowing you down, feel stuck, or maybe feel a bit off, what do you really want? What do you desire? What's here for you? Because when you allow yourself to tap into that and step into this next phase, it also helps everyone around you. I fully believe in the ripple effect. As each one of us awakens and steps more into our being, the fullness of who we are, our connection to God, Spirit, the divine, we bring a greater sense of peace to earth. And I'm all about that. Wishing you a beautiful day. You'll find more reflections, teachings, and deeper conversations inside the Exhale on Substack. And if you're feeling called towards more personalized support, you can book a clarity call through the link in the show notes. I'm so glad you were here. I'll see you next time.